Happy May, Mindy on Money. Crud. Happy May, Mindy on Money Month if you celebrate.
And to celebrate, we're coming at you live, not from the luxurious Capital One Lounge where we originally recorded, and then our software failed to save our recording. We're coming at you from our hotel room at the Marriott in St. Louis.
The Fairfield in downtown St. Louis.
So fancy.
So fancy. Carl recently posted in our Facebook group looking for questions that we could answer for you. And you did not disappoint. Today's question comes from Jennifer. Is it still possible to have a $1 million net worth by age 65 or 70 if you're starting at age 50 with $100,000?
Ooh.
I'm Mindy Jensen.
And I'm Carl Jensen.
And this is the Mindy
and Carl
on Money podcast, where we talk about what happens after you reach financial independence.
Why do we call this show Mindy on Money?
Because nobody would listen to a show called Mindy Wants to Be the Boss of the World. So instead, we talk about money.
You do actually want to be the boss of the world, though, right?
Yes, but nobody would listen to that show.
No, I listen to it every day, actually.
Don't you love it?
Yeah, it's great.
Today's episode of the Mindy
and Carl
on Money podcast, we discuss the listener question about getting a later start on your financial independence journey. But before we get started, let's take a quick break.
Today's episode is sponsored by our friend Amberly Grant's new podcast, and this podcast is called Jump In Feet First.
That's right, Carl. Amberly's podcast, Jump In Feet First, explores the idea that most things in life take 20 seconds of courage. So she explores new ways of living through conversations about life and finance.
Go check out her new show. And now, on to Mindy's Mindy on Money Month question. Ooh, I got it right.
Did you?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. What should you do if you started your retirement journey at age 50? Is it still possible to have $1 million by 65 or 70 if you have less than $100,000 now? So when this was first posed in our Facebook group, Josh Overmeyer came in and gave an answer that was really, really good. He said, probably more possible than you realize. The good part about starting your journey a little later is that you already know more about yourself and life than the 22-year-old starting out of college. You have more connections and skills. You're likely higher earning than that new grad as well. You may have your expenses under control, like a long-term housing situation or a paid-off car. You may have your systems under control better than somebody who's starting from zero. And the best news is that you already have $100,000. By using the rule of 72, which is a shorthand for estimating the length of time it takes for your money to double, assuming an 8% return, which is valid, your money will double to $200,000 in 9 years at age 59, and again to $400,000 in 18 years at age 68. The existing $100,000 will be about $500,000 by the time you're age 70. And that's without adding another dime to your pot. So the more you can save and invest in the next 20 years, the faster you'll get there and or the higher the balance you'll have at age 70.
So let's stop here for a second. If Jennifer does absolutely nothing, she is going to be halfway there. All she has to do is keep that $100,000 invested, not touch it, and if historical returns hold up, she'll be halfway there, which is pretty cool.
That is cool. How does she get to the other $500,000?
Yeah, so I did some simple math, and with an 8% return, she would have to save about $1,000 a month for the next 20 years to get to the other $500,000.
Okay.
So $1,000 a month?
That's not insurmountable, depending on her income.
Yeah. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. I've got a little rant for you. This doesn't exactly apply to Jennifer, but it applies to a lot of other conversations I've had. I was thinking about myself, and when I got out of college, that was a long time ago. I was like 25, 24. I had zero money. I had zero connections. I only had the skills I learned from college, which many of us know aren't really applicable. And you know what? I wasn't worried about anything. I thought the world was great. Fast forward to today, I talk to people in the FI community all the time who have millions with an S saved up, and they're so paranoid about their situation in life. What if I run out of money? What if this happens? What if this happens? I'm like, well, were you this worried when you were out of school? Now you have a network of people. You have skills. You have experience. You've got all this stuff going for you. And again, I'm not saying Jennifer is like this, but I see a lot of this around the FI community. So I'll just say real quick before we go on, stop worrying. It's going to be okay.
Stop worrying, but also pay attention, be more money conscious.
Yeah, you shouldn't just be silly about it.
Right.
You're smart. You're going to figure it out. And now you have all that money at your back.
And she doesn't have to do it alone. She can pull from all these different resources in the FI community, and she doesn't have to figure it out by herself.
Yeah, the FI community and her own community that she's built up over decades of work.
Yeah.
So what are some of the pros of Jennifer's situation?
So some of the pros, Jennifer, and anybody else getting a later start to FI, is that you're probably making a lot more money at age 50 than you were at 25. You can simply reallocate those funds from whatever they're being spent on now to your retirement and after-tax brokerage accounts. You potentially have an empty nest. You can downsize or take on roommates. There's time for side hustles. If you don't have an empty nest, you most likely have older kids. So there's time for side hustles where you can funnel that money straight into your retirement savings. There's the over 50 catch-up contributions. Now that you're 50, you have an additional $6,000 in your 401k, an additional $1,000 for your IRA. That's not small potatoes. That's literally $7,000 more than somebody who's age 49. You're experienced, so you could potentially job hop to more money. And there's lots of misinformation surrounding Social Security. It will still be around when you retire, so don't discount that.
Yeah, Ben Carson from the Wealth of Common Sense blog wrote a post about this that we'll link to in the show notes. Don't believe the mainstream media when they talk about Social Security, because it's all wrong and they're just trying to scare you, so you read their big bad article. Look at the numbers. It's going to take a couple small tweaks to save Social Security, and even if bad things do happen, no politician is going to make changes to people about to retire. It's the people who are like 20 and 30 now who are going to be the ones who take a big hit. Let's talk about the cons.
Yeah, they take a hit. I wouldn't say it's a big hit. It'll be an adjusted hit.
What are the cons?
All right. The cons, you're going to have to take more risks later in life. Do you really want to be 100% in stocks at age 60? Maybe, if you're seeing a lot of growth, but the stocks have a much riskier return than a bond fund, a bond portfolio. On the other hand, a stock portfolio is going to have more growth opportunity. You potentially still have kids in college, which could be rather pricey. But here's a tip. You can finance their college. You can't finance your retirement. You might be set in your ways, for lack of a better term, meaning you're used to what you're used to, and change can be really difficult. And finally, this doesn't come from me, but older workers tend not to get hired as quickly as younger workers. So I definitely wouldn't leave a job before you had another job in place.
Yeah, those are some great points. And I really like the one about making your kids pay for their own college. A lot of people think that they absolutely have to pay for their kids, and that's great if you can do it. But just like on an airplane, when the air masks come out, the oxygen masks, if the plane's going down, you have to take care of yourself first.
And then your friend.
Yes. In this case, your kids have lots of time to recover from loans. They're going to have decades of their life ahead of them, and you do not. So put yourself first. Be a little selfish here. You can leave them some money when you croak if you want.
Nice. That was so charming.
Yeah, no one. I hope our kids don't listen to this.
Yes. So, Jennifer, you might want to reset your expectations. This is going to take a lot of work. So maybe the goal shouldn't be $1 million. Do you want to give away the next 2 decades? Some things to consider. Why do you think you need $1 million at age 70? Younger people have done this by house hacking. So could you take on more roommates? Do you really want to take on more roommates? You can downsize your living expenses through geographic arbitrage. Move to a cheaper part of the world. Sell off unused possessions. Like, look around the house. Do you have some stuff just sitting there that you really don't need? What other changes could you make? There's plenty of blog articles about cutting expenses, living frugally, exchanging this item for that item because that item is less expensive. But things are going to have to change in order for you to reach financial independence. And I don't say that to be mean. I say that to be truthful.
I'm going to double click on a point. There isn't a 20-year-old in the world who would trade bodies with Warren Buffett to have all his money, which is going to extreme. That's taking into consideration the extreme situation. But $1 million at 70, that's an interesting goal. But what's the average lifespan in America? Like 76, 78, maybe 80 if you really take care of yourself. I think I'd rather have a little bit less money and be free from work and do all of this a little bit younger than hold out for that magical $1 million number. You don't know what your body and life is going to be like when you're 70, so I might err on the side of having $500,000 at 62 or something like that, and maybe tweaking some of these other things in your life that we talked about. Go to Portugal, or, I don't know, find some other tweaks to get things started a little bit earlier.
Yeah. A couple other tips. There's a phrase out there that says comparison is a thief of joy. Do not compare your situation at age 50 to somebody else's situation at age 50. You have different life circumstances that happened to get you to this phase, just like everybody else. So when you see a story about somebody who is ahead of you, stop reading that story. When you see a story about somebody who's behind you, those are the stories you want to read to help keep you motivated. Or, read the one about the person ahead of you to see how they got there. But don't compare your life to somebody else's because it's not the same. And while we love our show and our Facebook group, which is found at facebook.com/groups/Mindy on Money, there's another one called Catching Up to FI, where they specifically address the late starter financial independence journey. Definitely listen to their podcast and join their Facebook group too. Carl, do you have any final thoughts?
I just want to make sure that Jennifer doesn't get too judgy or down on herself. She's doing a lot better than a lot of people. The fact that she is in this community means that she has already figured a lot of stuff out and wants to make these changes. So no matter where she ends up, I think it's going to be good for her. I just don't want her to be negative. There's always going to be someone who has more than you, but there's probably a lot of people who have less than you too. So be thankful.
Yes, absolutely. You are conscious about your money situation, so you are already ahead of the pack. I just recorded an episode with a Gen Z. Is that after millennial? Gen Z, whatever. Emma, she's 23. The average person in her generation has $33,000 saved for retirement, which is awesome. The average Gen Xer, which is me and Carl and Jennifer here, has $40,000 saved for retirement. So if you want to compare yourself to that, and you're already 2.5x ahead of the pack.
Geez, 40,000. Oof.
Yeah. Well, they need to start saving. They need to start listening. All right. Tune in next week when we answer some of your questions and wrap up May Mini Mindy on Money Month. Ooh, I said it right.
Yeah, nice. What comes in June? What alliteration do we have for that?
That's too far ahead. I don't know.
June, Jelly Bean. I don't know any other J words. I guess her last name, but that's weird. I don't want to use that.
June Jensen Jelly Beans? We're not even talking about jelly beans.
We'll think of something to be continued, to be determined.
Thank you for listening.
Bye. Okay, please.
Where are you going?
I'm turning off my... Oh, jeez. No, it's speaking of... I'm just turning off my phone, which is beeping. This will be for the blooper reel. The number one rule of podcasting is to put your phone on Do Not Disturb, although my phone likes to disturb us even when that's on. Okay.